Okay. Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Rehabilitation and Social Services Committee. I'm going to ask the clerk to open the roll so those members who are present can indicate so.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Since this is the first meeting of the 2022 session, I think it's appropriate that we go around and introduce ourselves. So I will start on my far right, the bottom row, with Senator Morrissey. Could you please
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, folks. Good to see everybody early this morning. I'm Joe Morrissey, and I represent Richmond and Chesterfield County, Petersburg, in the Virginia State Senate. Good to be with you.
Good morning. I'm Senator Jennifer Boysko. I represent the 33rd Senate District, which is northwestern Fairfax County, eastern Loudoun County, towns of Leesburg and Herndon. And it's good to be here.
Jeremy McPike, 29th Senate District, representing Prince William, Manassas, and Manassas Park.
Lionel Spruill, statewide.
John Cosgrove, 14th Senate District, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, Suffolk, Isle of Wight, Southampton County, and the city of Franklin.
Almost statewide.
Almost statewide.
Bill D. Steff, Virginia Beach.
Jen Kiggins, Virginia Beach and Norfolk.
Todd Pillion, Southwest Virginia.
Bryce Reeves, Freshburg, Spotsylvania, Louisiana, Orange, Culpeper, and Albemarle.
Emmett Hanger, live in Augusta County.
Barbara Favola. I represent the 31st Senate District, which is portions of Arlington, Fairfax, and Loudoun County.
Mamie Locke, 2nd Senate District, which is parts of the cities of Hampton, Newport News, Portsmouth, and York County.
Monty Mason, 1st District, the part of the Virginia Peninsula that Senator Locke hands off to me.
Thank you, colleagues, for coming on time. I do want to take a moment to welcome a new member to Rehab and Social Services, and that is Senator Pillion. Senator Pillion, thank you. We welcome you. Okay, I'm going to go over some housekeeping items, and I'll start with referring some of the bills that will go to subcommittees. This Rehab and Rehabilitation Social Services has two subcommittees. One is an ABC subcommittee, and the other is a cannabis subcommittee. So the ABC subcommittee is chaired by Senator Monty Mason. The members are Senator McPike, Senator Spruill, Senator Reeves, and Senator Cosgrove. The bills I read will be posted to that subcommittee, and the subcommittee will have a full hearing and discussion of them. Recommendations will then be made to Rehab and Social Services. If there's some controversial bills or bills that are particularly complex, the full committee will also hear the bill, but members of the public will be allowed to speak only if they did not speak to the subcommittee. The bills going to ABC: Senate Bill 65, 196, 254, 325, 527, and 619. So thank you, Senator Mason, for chairing that committee. The next committee, we called it marijuana. I'm changing it to the cannabis committee, subcommittee. And that committee is chaired by Senator Jeremy McPike, who has done yeoman's work in the whole area of the cannabis, what shall I say it? The cannabis, everything. Okay, bills going to Senator McPike's subcommittee. Senate Bills 313, 391, and 591. Both chairs will post dates and times for meetings, and again, for issues that are complicated or particularly controversial, the full committee will hear bills that are reported out of the subcommittee on cannabis.
Madam Chair, has the 420 Club changed? The McPike's, has that changed to sub?
No, I'll read the members, okay? I mentioned again, Senator McPike will chair it. Senator Spruill, Senator Servell, Senator Boysko, Senator McDougal, Senator Reeves, and Senator Kiggins will be serving on the marijuana/cannabis committee. And these members, you were on that subcommittee when we passed the comprehensive bill last year, which established the entire framework for the cannabis marijuana market. Okay, so let's turn to the bills before us today. We have most of our patrons are committee members. Out of courtesy, I am going to go to our non-committee member, Senator Marsden. And Senator Marsden, I'd like you to discuss Bill number 316.
Thank you much, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 316. Had a problem for a number of years, and the Commission on Youth has done yeoman's work here to attempt to provide the clarity and certainty that we need for information sharing between the Department of Social Services, Department of Juvenile Justice, Community Services Boards on children who they all have interests in and are providing services to. And I'd like to thank Commission Director Amy Atkinson and Will Egan for the wonderful job that they have done here today. It involves dual-involved kids who are involved in more than one, local system, and there's sometimes confusion around authority and what information can be shared. And I think this bill goes a long way towards solving that. In my personal experience, consulting around the country, this is a consistent problem everywhere. What this legislation has three main pieces that work together. It specifies that local agencies that have entered into a formal agreement with the Department of Juvenile Justice to provide coordinated services to children shall be considered as having a legitimate interest in those youth records for a purpose relevant to treatment. Second point is the bill provides that such formal agreements may allow the local agencies and the Department of Juvenile Justice to immediately identify children who may be receiving or who have received services from the local agencies and the Department of Juvenile Justice. In other words, sometimes we're not even aware that a child is dual involved because of the protections we have in place to make sure that that information is kept private. The bill also has the Department of Juvenile Justice to create a model memorandum of understanding, an MOU, that may serve as the formal agreement entered into by local agencies. There'll be no cost to create the memorandum of understanding, as the Department of Juvenile Justice is willing to absorb the cost of that work. The bill provides clarity and certainty and clears up a lot of confusion in local agencies and the Department of Juvenile Justice in terms of trying to serve these kids, making sure that everybody gets the right information about the kids, but not what they're not entitled to. And I wanted to make one final point. This bill does not expand or change what records or information agencies are able to access and share from current law. Any current requirements for informed consent of the youth or guardian remain the same. Madam Chair, that's Senate Bill 316. Be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Marsden. Are there any questions, colleagues? Okay, hearing none.
Move to report.
Wait, let's take public comment. Senator Marsden, was this a Commission on Youth bill?
It is a Commission on Youth bill.
So it did go through some study and
it has gone through extensive
debate.
study and evaluation by the staff. We've worked closely with the Department of Juvenile Justice, Social Services, and have actually brought in folks from around the state who have worked out some agreements to use as models. I believe we even had some testimony from the state of Maryland. And so it's been very well vetted.
It's been vetted because it is a sensitive topic. Do you have speakers in favor of this bill? Do you have any speakers that you're aware of in opposition? Oh, okay.
No, I don't hear.
Ms. LaRue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Valerie LaRue from Virginia Poverty Law Center. And with the addition of the section that requires the Chief Judge of the Circuit Court to review the agreements, we would support this bill. Thank you. And that is in there.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
I have one other request. Do we have any speakers lined up in the virtual platform?
For those attendees in the Zoom room who would like to speak, please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, there are no hands up.
Thank you. Senator Sproul.
Madam Chair, to the Commission, to Senator Marsden, I have to vote for your bill. I got on the elevator yesterday and I met a young man. And I always ask all these pages, so what's your name? He gave me his name. I say, Marston. And I say, He said, you know my grandpa? I say, yeah, that's my grandpa. I said, he's the best grandpa in the world. I said, I said, he's going to vote for all my bills.
There we go. I'll ask the panel to keep that in mind.
Okay, it's now time for a motion.
Second.
Okay, Senator Mason made a motion to report, and Senator Boysko seconded. Will the clerk please open the roll?
Ayes 15, noes 0.
Well done.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Thank you, Senator Marsden. Okay, I would now like to turn to Senator Morrissey.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My
morning.
bill before you is Senate Bill 108, abolishing long-term solitary confinement in the Commonwealth. Madam Chair, I would tell you at the outset that there are at least 4 people that wish to speak. I've told them that their time would be limited once I finish. To most of the members on this committee, you are familiar with SB 108. It was before you last year. I believe it passed on an 8-5-1 vote. It got weighed down in the House of Delegates because after it passed the Senate, there was a huge fiscal impact suggested by DOC. This bill comes before you now after a lot of study. My office, along with the chairman, Senator Favola, the Virginia Solitary Coalition, and other legislators, visited DOC facilities during the off session. We're able to ask a lot of questions, and I believe we also were able to address the fiscal impact, if any. First of all, what this bill does is it abolishes long-term isolated solitary confinement in the Commonwealth of Virginia. No one may spend more than 15 days in solitary confinement during a 60-day period. And whilst in solitary confinement, they would have 4 hours of out-of-cell or out-of-cage time for recreation or some type of exercise. There are a number of sister states that have abolished solitary confinement in the Commonwealth, in our country, and they have been successful. Not only successful in helping those individuals who were in solitary confinement, but the fiscal impact decreased substantially. For example, Colorado closed a segregation facility built for 316 prisoners. After doing that, they saved $13.6 million in 2013 and 14 without any negative impact. Illinois closed Tama's Supermax in 2013, which almost everyone was isolated, saved $26 million a year. Mississippi closed a unit. Almost 1,000 prisoners that were in isolated confinement. They saved $8 million a year. Again, no negative impacts. If an individual is placed in solitary confinement, the staff must take the following measures. Madam Chair, a medical and mental health evaluation is given during the first 24 hours, and then reasoning for keeping an individual in solitary must be provided every 48 hours. There will be exceptions for certain situations that will allow a person to stay in isolation. If an individual volunteers to be placed in there, and there are a number of reasons you can imagine why somebody might volunteer. If he's a threat to himself or others, and 3, if he is under investigation by a facility, a DOC facility, or staff. Again, I think I'm repeating some of myself from last year. This bill, and Madam Chair, perhaps you may allow some folks to testify, and then I'll remain here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator.
All right.
Did you want to bring speakers who
Yes.
are in favor of this bill and currently in the room? Please come forward.
Yes. Kim Bobo, she is the director of the Virginia Interfaith Center.
Good morning, Madam Chair and esteemed senators. I'm Kim Bobo, Director of the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy. Faith communities are united in their opposition to solitary confinement. Holding people for extended periods of time is torture. Yesterday, my staff delivered to all of your offices a list of all the faith communities that oppose solitary confinement. And we had a press conference with Virginia faith leaders calling for limits to the use of solitary confinement. They described the practice as torture and violation of Scripture and an affront to God. Around the country, there's been a move by agencies to pretend they aren't holding people in solitary by switching the names of what they call it. In Virginia, DOC claims it doesn't use solitary confinement. A few years ago, the practice of isolating people was switched to restrictive housing, and then they started calling it restorative housing. Change of language isn't change of practice. Whatever you call it, isolating people for long periods of time is torture. The DOC claims it has implemented new approaches for reducing the use of solitary confinement. Perhaps, but frankly, pastors and family members tell us different. And the Department of Corrections October 21 report, so just 3 months ago, tells a different story as well. In fiscal year 2021, more than 5,000 people were put in isolation, 48% of them with mental health issues. The Department of Corrections report says that 1,445 people, our neighbors, spent 15 to 29 days in isolation. 1,748 people were in restorative housing, solitary confinement, for more than 30 days. Indeed, we believe this is torture. And so clergy and volunteer ministers and the Virginia Interfaith Center believe we need to do different. Hebrews 13:3 says, "Continue to remember those in prison as if you were together with them in prison, and those who are mistreated as if you yourselves were suffering." Virginia needs a policy from the General Assembly that will stop torture and reduce the use of solitary confinement. We urge you to vote for this bill. Thank you. I did.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Jeff Caruso with the Virginia Catholic Conference. Our Catholic dioceses have extensive experience in prison ministry. We recognize that solitary confinement has many negative consequences. At the same time, we also recognize that there may be instances where it's necessary, the situations that Senator Morrissey mentioned, for example. In our view, this bill appropriately limits the damaging effects of solitary confinement while still simultaneously continuing to protect the life, the dignity, and the safety of all members of the prison community. So for that reason, we would ask you to support the bill.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Natasha White. I'm the coordinator for the Virginia Coalition on Solitary Confinement. Solitary confinement is a form of torture as its practice entails caging an individual into a minuscule space while depriving them of basic human needs. Studies have shown that isolation could be mentally and physically taxing since people are restricted from human interaction and mental stimuli. For instance, Southern Poverty Law Center reported that people in solitary confinement may suffer from restlessness, hallucinations, and incoherence of thought and speech. There are 11 suicides per 100,000 incarcerated individuals in Virginia's federal and state prisons from 2001 and 2019. Its inhumaneness is so transparent that even the Virginia Department of Corrections settled 2 lawsuits due to the negative repercussions of placing a person in solitary confinement. Nicholas Reyes, trapped in solitary for 12 years because he was unable to communicate in English. In another lawsuit, an individual who struggled with mental illness was left in confinement for 600 days. However, DOC alleges that solitary confinement ended in 2019, which is false because it has been masked by the new and 9th name change of restorative housing. Not only is solitary confinement inhumane, but this overly punitive practice is putting a dent in Virginia's budget because solitary has been known to increase state budgets In 2013, report from the U.S. Government Accountability Office, the cost of placing people in supermax units was 153% higher than the costs for people remaining with the rest of the prison population. Although saving money is beneficial for Virginia, money should not supersede human worth and humanity. According to data for progress.
May I ask you to conclude?
Yes.
Thank you.
Data for Progress that conducted a study with 590 Virginians, the findings revealed that only 57% of the participants were in support of reducing solitary confinement.
Thank you so much. I will ask speakers to keep their remarks to 3 minutes. Is this Mr. Hammond?
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
Senators. I just wanted to make a short comment that the Virginia chapter of the National Associations of Social Workers supports this bill, and they appreciate the leadership of Senator Morrissey. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the clerk if anybody in the virtual platform wishes to speak in favor of this bill.
Please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, there are no members.
Okay.
Madam Chair, would you consider listening briefly to David Smith and Joe Geritano?
Yes.
The last two. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Good morning, Senators. Thank you
Good
for
morning.
taking this bill up this morning. As you know, we are here again. We were here last year talking about the same issue. I am David Smith, the chair of the Virginia Coalition on Solitary Confinement, representing 29 organizations around the entire state of Virginia. Solitary confinement is still being practiced in this state. DOC has settled 4 lawsuits since 2020 about their abuses on solitary confinement. We are asking you to take the humane and the fiscally responsible choice today of voting on the policy to end solitary confinement, the extended solitary confinement, the torture of Virginians in our prisons. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, good morning. Senators.
Good morning. Good
Pleasure
morning.
to be here. I don't have statistics for you. I can't. My name is Joe Geritano. We don't have time for the backstory, but I tell you, I spent 8 years in solitary confinement at Red Onion, 6 years in solitary confinement at Walden's Ridge, stints of up to a year to 2 years in Utah Supermax, Joliet Supermax, all on a Virginia sentence. Not because I was a problem inmate, except that I filed lawsuits. I taught prisoners the law, assisted them. Now, what I can tell you about solitary confinement is this. In the years that I was there, I see men kill themselves, cut themselves. I watched a man cut his penis off. Not because he was crazy. He was made crazy by being isolated. You know, we're conditioned to stimulation all of our lives from the time we come out of the womb. To have that stimulation stripped away and put in the hole messes with your mind. I'm here as an exception to the rule, but I'm not undamaged. I have nightmares. I'm claustrophobic. I had to quit a job because I couldn't keep going into jails and prisons. It was too much. The PTSD gets to me. This bill is a good bill. It doesn't solve all the problems. But I can tell you, solitary confinement exists today in this Commonwealth. It has existed when I went into the system in 1979. The names changed. Initially, it was isolation, administrative segregation. The euphemisms don't matter. The U.S. Supreme Court in the 1800s, in the first case that they ruled on dealing with solitary confinement, they talked about its dangers. They talked about what it did to the prisoners. These guys are coming out. I've seen guys released on parole, mandatory parole, because their sentences were up, directly from solitary confinement back into society, walk right out of Red Onion Prison, and most of them are back in prison again, creating new victims. So I would appreciate it. My wife would appreciate it. The families of other prisoners would appreciate it. And families of potential victims would appreciate y'all supporting this bill and getting it done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your personal experience. It was
Thank you,
very,
Senator.
very compelling. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes my presentation. If there are any questions, I'll try to address them.
Okay, before we get to questions, Mr. Morrissey, is there anybody in opposition to your bill?
I don't know, and if you ask right now, Madam Chair, or if there's somebody in
I'm going
perhaps
to
in the
ask on the
virtual.
virtual platform, do you have anybody in opposition?
Anybody who would like to speak in opposition in the Zoom room, please raise your hand now. Madam Chair, at this time, there are no hands.
Okay, thank you. All right, Senator Morrissey, would you like to make any closing remarks?
No, I think everything has been said, Madam Chair.
Okay. Colleagues, a motion on this bill would be to approve and refer to finance. This does have to go to finance. Okay. Motion has been made by Senator Mason, seconded by Senator Servell. The motion is to report and refer to finance. Clerk, please open the roll.
Ayes 8, noes 1, or noes 6, 1 abstention.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Senator Mason, Senate Bill 307.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Over the last couple of years, we've done a lot of work regarding kinship adoption. And, there's a Ken Gap program that's federal that had some fairly rigid requirements. So last year, we passed a state program that tried to do more to have children adopted by kin folks. This is a bill that's designed if someone at kin is rejected for foster care, they just simply have the opportunity to appeal. And so when this bill was brought to me, I immediately went to my social services coordinators, with whom I'm very close. And one of them said to me, right now I have a case that would very likely be appealed. And I'm okay with that because I think I'm making the right decision. I think it would help them get another set, and it would just put another set of eyes on the case. So there's already an appeals process set up in social services for CPS cases. This would run through the same area. The problem is we don't know how many there could be, but someone may want to testify who has represented some folks that felt like, for whatever reason, the social services team were making a wrong decision as far as placing them with kin. So we just want to give them the opportunity. We feel like it'll be fairly, I don't think it's going to be used very much at all because, quite frankly, social services has put a major emphasis on trying to have folks adopted by kins, and their numbers, I should have the number because the numbers in the last year are tremendous. So this just gives an opportunity if somebody feels like they were wrongly denied to appeal and have somebody else take a look at it. That's the bill, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Mason. Pierce, you have a speaker. I'm asking that speakers in favor of your bill come forward and limit your remarks to 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Valerie LaRue from Virginia Poverty Law Center, and we support this bill. I hear from relatives who call my office because they've been turned down for the opportunity to become foster parents after they have gone through the process of fingerprinting, background checks, training, house studies, all the things that any foster parent needs to go through. And then sometimes they get a denial. And sometimes when I look at, they will share their denial letters with me. And sometimes when I look at those denial letters, I say, well, I get why you're denied. And other times I look at it and I think, this doesn't really make sense to me. So like Senator Mason said, this would give another set of eyes through the CPS administrative appeal process to see if should that have happened. As Senator Mason said, we have gone from having 6% of our foster families be relatives to about 18 across the country. It's around 30%. So we are getting there. But I think that this will give those relatives a sense that they were heard and had that opportunity for someone else besides the person who denied them, who might have gotten to the point where they don't like that person, because as you know, relatives can be pretty fierce in pushing their case when it's their child, and we all understand that. So for all the reasons that I've just stated, Madam Chair, I support this bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Allison Gilbreath with Voices for Virginia's Children. I'd like to echo the comments of my colleague Valerie. We support this bill as well. Voices is also home to the foster care network, where 22 organizations have signed on to a unified agenda, and they support this bill as well. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Eric Reynolds, Director of the Office of the Children's Ombudsman. I support this bill as well. We've reviewed some cases in my office where this situation has arisen, and to engage relatives and kin to take care of foster children or children in foster care on a permanent basis has been a problem in some areas of the Commonwealth, and we're seeing it more and more as our office reviews more of these kinds of cases. So support the bill.
Thank you. Your office does important work. Is anybody else who's presently here wish to speak in favor of the bill? Okay, I will ask the clerk if anybody in our virtual platform wishes to speak in favor.
At this time, those attendees who would like to speak in support of the bill, please raise your hand electronically now. At this time, Madam Chair,
Okay. And I will ask, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? Anybody on the virtual platform who wishes to speak in opposition?
those attendees in the room, please raise your hand now. Madam Chair, I confirm that there are no.
Okay, thank you. And it has to be referred to finance.
Ooh.
Okay. Okay, motion has been made by Senator Cosgrove to refer to finance. It has been seconded by Senator Reeves. Will the clerk please open the roll?
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members good.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, Senator Mason, I guess I'm next on the docket, so I would like you to chair the meeting. Okay.
Which number are we taking up first, Madam Chair?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take up Senate Bill 49. And this bill addresses critically missing adults. And what this bill does is it simply removes the statement, as you can see in line 14. So an individual no longer has to be believed to have been abducted for a family to go to the state police and ask that a missing alert be considered. We did work with the state police. We worked with NAMI and representatives of other groups who are very concerned about their loved ones who sometimes go missing. We think that this is a really needed amendment. We hope you would consider, I would like you to consider passing the bill. There's no fiscal impact. State police believe that passage of this will not substantially increase their workload. That's the bill.
Thank you, ma'am. Any members of the committee have questions for Senator Voll? Would any members of the audience like, Senator Morrissey.
Senator, when you're talking about a critically missing adult, are you talking about one who folks suspect may be in danger because he or she has been abducted, or are you talking about an individual who, because of intellectual deficits, may not know how to find himself or herself back home, way back home?
A critically missing adult would be an adult who would be in danger to themselves or others. So it does not have anything to do with whether or not they're abducted. Under my bill, I'm removing that.
Senator Morrison. Early this morning, I was listening to a report on Channel 12 where it was about an adult who was missing and has gone missing for 10 days now. That person, and they don't know what happened to him, they suspect he may have gotten lost because he was walking from Prince George to Petersburg and then disappeared. It would cover that individual, is that right?
Yes, it would. That situation, again, would be referred to the police. The loved ones would have to show some documentation that the person who was missing, has maybe a medical issue, has diminished cognitive ability, has some reason, substantial reason that could be at risk to himself, and then the state police would review the case.
Right.
State police use criteria in determining if somebody's critically missing because of a media alert must go out. So they don't want to overuse the media alert because then that loses some of its effectiveness. But they believe they can, under my change, they can continue to use it judiciously and protect those who need it. I do have some speakers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Morrissey. So those in the audience like to speak in favor of the bill, please come forward.
Are you speaking in favor of my bill, Senator?
Senator D-Stuff.
I was a little surprised.
Happy to. It's very kind of you, sir. You can do that from your chair. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Senator, and good morning. We do have Kathy, who will be speaking virtually, and then we have some others just for technical reasoning if you need it, but we do have Kathy who will be speaking virtually, if that's okay.
Okay, we'll go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. In the audience? Whoop, Senator Foley, got another speaker behind you, ma'am.
Oh, I apologize.
That's okay. Disability Law Center of Virginia supports this.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else in the audience present? We'll go to online. Those in favor online. Okay. Okay.
Mendez, please unmute and begin your testimony. And Kathy Harvey, please begin your testimony.
Ms. Mendez, are you with us?
Good morning. Senator Mason, can you hear me well?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Anna Mendez. I am the Executive Director of Partner for Mental Health based in Charlottesville, Virginia. We support abolishing the requirement of the presumption of abduction in order to activate the critically missing adult alert program. Unfortunately, we have witnessed poor outcomes for clients who have gone missing without having been abducted. These poor outcomes resulted in hospitalizations and incarcerations that likely could have been prevented. There are reasonable privacy concerns. However, on the balance, the ability to mobilize resources when a life may be in danger must be prioritized. Please support this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Mendez. Ms. Harkey, are you with us?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. My name is Kathy Harkey. I'm the Executive Director of YAMI Virginia, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Having a workable critical missing adult system to locate individuals in mental distress is crucial to saving lives. It will prevent suicides, reduce homelessness, prevent deterioration of condition, and it will assist family members who are desperate and under stress to find their loved ones. I would strongly ask that you support this legislation, and I would like to take a moment to thank Senator Favola for supporting this bill, patroning this bill, and for members of the committee for hearing my testimony. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you very much for your testimony, ma'am. If there are no other members, if there are no other folks in the queue, is anyone in the audience who wishes to speak against the bill? Anyone in the queue on the computer would like to speak against the bill?
It does not.
It's been moved to report and second the bill. All, please cast your ballot.
Would you
Please
please?
open the roll. No, you've got yours up there.
I can't. Can you? So, I've got-
15
Ayes
yea.
15, noes 0.
Thank you, ma'am. Senator Vola, do you have another?
I do. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to Senate Bill 48.
Ma'am?
Very simple. What this bill does is the Commonwealth has a Council on Aging. And we're asking, my bill would require that the Commonwealth Council on Aging actually submit to the Governor, the General Assembly, and the Department by October 1st of each year an electronic report regarding the activities and recommendations that the Commonwealth Council on Aging has actually done for the past year. It would be an annual report. I think it's a useful tool for us to have. I respectfully ask the committee's support. There is no fiscal impact.
Thank you, Senator Vola. I know there's several efforts trying to elevate aging here in Richmond and the state government. Anybody in the audience wish to speak in favor of the bill? Anybody online wish to speak in favor? Whoop, Senator DeStep.
Mr. Chair, Senator Vola.
Yes.
I know which bill you're trying to do, but the one online is not the bill that you're talking about right now. So if I may, the one when you click it that comes up, oh, never mind. I think that there was a problem between my chair and my keyboard. I clicked the wrong bill.
And
I read the other one last night, and this time
reading the
I
correct
clicked
bill,
the
I think, would
wrong
make you
one.
happier.
So no, you're on it. I made a mistake. I apologize
Thank you.
tremendously.
Senator DeStef has submitted user error. Anyone like to speak in favor of the bill in the audience? Anyone online?
Erica Woods, would you please unmute and begin your testimony?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. I'm Erica Wood, and I'm a member of the Commonwealth Council on Aging, and I'm chair of the Council's Legislative Committee, and I'm speaking in strong support of Senate Bill 48. Every year, the Council on Aging produces an annual report of its activities, including its local best practice awards and its legislative recommendations. This valuable report has not been automatically sent to the General Assembly because the code provision describing the Council's duties has not included the language that's in Senate Bill 48. The Council's duties include a mandate to advise the Governor and the General Assembly on aging issues and policies, and the bill would help the Council to do that. So this bill would bring visibility to the Council and help to elevate aging issues with legislators and the public, and we strongly support it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Wood. Anybody in the audience wish to speak against the bill? Or anyone online wish to speak against?
For those who would like to speak against the bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chair, there are no hands.
Is there a motion? It's been moved to report in second, Senate Bill 48. Please cast your ballot.
Ayes 15, noes 0.
Ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is my last bill for the day. It's Senate Bill 56. And, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that the committee adopt an amendment in the nature of a substitute. It should be.
It's been moved and seconded. Substitute, all in favor? Aye. All right, substitutes before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I will speak to the entire bill now. This is a foster care prevention.
Mr. Chairman, do we have the substitute? It's on Mr. May.
Mr. Chair, I just released it through the system, so you should be able to access it through your system now.
Okay, let's take a second to look at it. And while we're doing that, Senator Vola, would you maybe just represent the change? Tell us what changed.
I'm happy to tell you the change.
Thank you, ma'am.
The substitute, what it does is it articulates that a JDR judge would actually call for an assessment before a case management review. So we're just giving the judge some options here, some guidance. And the other change in the substitute actually articulates that payments will only be available for as long as funding is available. And that's in the enactment clause, or that's in your part 2, lines 117 to 122. Would you say that's accurate representation? council agrees with my presentation on the substitute. May I go ahead and explain the entire bill?
So the substitute is in the form of an amendment? Is that the way it's showing in everybody's computer? Yeah. Yeah, hit refresh because mine popped up. There you go. There you go. That was not user error.
That's why I started early today. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and explain the bill.
That'd be great.
So what this does is families who are struggling and for whatever reason cannot care for their child adequately, it can go to a court, JDR judge, and ask for a joint custody agreement. It's frequently used where relatives or victim kin could possibly care for a child for a temporary period of time. Judge can determine what that time is. We don't put a time limit in here. And a judge could then ask that, it may ask, doesn't have to, but may ask social services to do an assessment, and based on that assessment, could also ask social services to provide case management services. That's the backdrop. If a child is eligible for the foster care prevention program, then what my bill does is it provides resources to these relatives or their victim kin. Right now, if victim kin are caring for a child, they're the custodial parents, they don't have access to state dollars or to Title IV-E dollars by virtue of caring for a child. This bill would allow that. This really prevents a child from going into the foster care system. This would be used, children who are eligible for this foster care prevention program are children who are at risk of abuse or neglect and would otherwise go into the foster care system. So not only is this a best practice for our child, it really is a best practice in terms of saving money and allocating resources in a way that gives us the best outcome. It's a very good bill. It's been in the works for 2 years.
Any members of the committee have questions for Senator Favola? Senator Morrissey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator, what would normally happen, if I understand this, if a child is living with a parent and the parent, for whatever reason, isn't able to care for the child, social services has not already intervened, but the parent says, before that happens, I want to bring it to kin folk, but those kin need to have some type of support
Custody.
in order to take it. Is that correct?
Well, right now, the kin could take it because that's all voluntary. You're talking about
Right.
agreements between private parties. What we are saying is if that child were to be eligible to receive dollars with the victim kin, they would have to go to court and get a custody agreement and then a determination that the child was actually at risk of going into foster care to be eligible for the program.
And the child never enters the foster
The child
care
never
system?
enters the program with this process.
All right, thank you.
This does have to be referred to finance because there'll be a combination of dollars, Title E, and I hope some state dollars that will make these families at least equal to what a Title E payment would be if they were in the foster care system.
But any payment under this bill would be less than a foster care payment, right?
It would be no more. My language says no more.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other members of the committee have questions for Senator Favola? So now we'll take members of the audience in favor.
For those in favor, please raise your hand electronically now.
Yes, ma'am.
Valerie LaRue from the Virginia Poverty Law Center. And I want to thank Senator Favola for working on this issue. It's been a thorny issue for a very long time in the Commonwealth of how to handle these situations. And I'm very much in favor of what Senator Favola is trying to do here. But in reading the language of the amendment, I'm not sure that we get there. And here's my main sticking point. So it says, in any custody case or proceeding involving the foster care prevention program, But then when you go into 63.2, the proposed 63.2-1307, it says the child is eligible for the foster care prevention program if the child is in the custody of a relative pursuant to a court order. So I think we have a chicken and an egg problem here, and I'm not sure how to resolve it. I think that we can probably get there, but I think this bill might need some more time to go over this language. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let's keep it moving.
Yep, next.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Allison Gilbreth with Voices for Virginia's Children. We too support the intent of this bill and hope to work on it a little bit more after it's sent to finance.
Excellent. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Eric Reynolds, Director of the Office of the Children's Ombudsman. I too recognize the hard work that Senator Favola has put into this work. The concept of foster care diversion or kinship diversion has been a major issue in our child welfare system. I'm seeing it in almost every case that I review in my office in some form or fashion, some of it good, some of it not so good, some of it with probably the most tragic outcomes. So any effort to try to address this issue, I will support. However, I repeat, I'll agree with some of the comments that Ms. LaRue had stated here. I think there's some trouble with the language here, and I think there's a better way to try to mesh our law, our statutes, with what efforts the Virginia Department of Social Services has made recently to address the diversion issue. They recently put out some really good guidelines and guidance for local departments to follow last April. And I think we could formulate some statutory scheme that could mesh with that to address our issues. And I would love to work with the senator to be able to fix it.
Excellent. We'll put y'all to work in the next couple of weeks. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, James Pickrell with the Virginia League of Social Services Executives, and we're in support of the bill.
Thank you, sir. Anyone online wish to support the bill?
At this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone in the audience? Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's obvious that Madam Chairman has a passion for this bill. And I understand that there may be some wishes to tweak the language some, but Senator Favola is well-versed in floor amendments, and I would hate to have this bill continue to churn through the committee process if we feel that we're really close and she can fix this on the floor.
Yes, sir. And it also has to go to finance. We'll get another crack at it there. Thank you, Senator Cosgrove. Anybody in the audience that would be opposed to this bill?
For those in the Zoom room who would like to oppose, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chair, at this moment, there are no.
Hearing none, I believe Senator DeStaff has a motion.
It does have to be referred to finance.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Chair, I'd like to report and refer to this fine bill to finance, and I think it truly does pick up and fill a gap that we have open. We've had open for a number of years, and I think this gives those of kinship the ability to foster and where otherwise they may not be able to reach or stretch to be able to do that.
Thank you, Senator. Just a second.
Second.
All right. If you please open the roll and cast your vote.
Ayes 15, noes 0.
All right. And everybody in the audience will work with Senator Favola on the way to finance and before to get this squared away. Thank you, sir.
I will work on it. Thank you, colleagues, for your trust. I think we have been fairly efficient. I don't see anything else on the agenda. I will ask David May, is there anything that should come before this committee today that we have not addressed?
Madam Chair, I think we're all done.
All right, hearing no other business. Thank you, colleagues. The committee shall rise.